Clutter Fairy fans, this is the Clutter Fairy Weekly for August 17th, 2021. I'm your co-host, Ed Gumnick, and I'm speaking with Gayle Goddard, certified professional organizer and owner of the Clutter Fairy in Houston, Texas. We're broadcasting live today from the Clutter Fairy Eastern Annex in beautiful, rainy Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Chattanooga.
In the middle of Tropical Depression Fred.
On his way to roll over our heads. Hi, everybody. The Clutter Fairy Weekly is a webcast and podcast where we dig deep into the clutter that stands between people and the lives they want to be living. We aim to make sense of where so much stuff comes from in the first place, and we offer strategies to slow down the accumulation, reduce the collection, and comfortably manage the stuff we choose to keep. We rely heavily on the questions and topic suggestions we get from you, our viewers and listeners.
If you're joining us in the Zoom meeting for the first time, you can share your comments and questions via the chat, and I'll try to make sure Gayle gets to them before we move to another topic. You can also use the raise hand feature to let me know that you'd like to ask a question or make a comment yourself via audio or video. We're also streaming the webcast live on Facebook, so you can share your questions, comments, and suggestions there, and I'll relay them to Gayle. And during the live show every Tuesday, you can talk to us by phone by calling 669-900-6833. Use meeting ID 993-419-863 and password clutter to join the meeting. We're going to start, as we usually do, by following up on last week's weekly tittle, which was called Tackle a Trouble Spot. The assignment was to take a fresh look at habits and routines that create clutter in your home, especially in your most clutter-prone area, then to focus your attention to reduce the stress on that clutter hotspot. We want to hear about results from our participants in Zoom and Facebook. Did anyone explore shifting the way you look at a clutter-prone spot this week? Please let us know in the comments. Lauren on YouTube had this to report in response to the tittle. My trouble spot is the coffee table, as projects frequently end up there. My box of cards and letters has been there for a couple months. Since these are sentimental, I have to be in the right frame of mind to go through them. Because it hasn't happened yet, I'm going to put them back in the storage room where they belong.
Thanks for sharing, Lauren. It sounds like the coffee table is your project work area, and any work area is a clutter hotspot for sure, unless you're disciplined about cleaning up the area very often. If you bring something there to work on and then don't put it up when you're done, or you put it there in anticipation of working on it, it's going to be clutter that's in the way pretty quickly, at least for as long as you ignore it. Good for you for noticing that it's there being ignored because it's been there for a couple months, and you realize that you need to be in the right frame of mind to look through it, so you can tell when the conditions are right for the work. Better to put it away as you suggested until you're in the right frame of mind to do something with the box. And let me make a further suggestion about that process too. Waiting for the right frame of mind to face everything in the box is a big ask emotionally. Why not leave the box put away but accessible? Then try taking 2 items out of the box to put on the coffee table. Having enough emotional strength to look at 2 items will be an easier ask than looking through the whole box. In essence, you're asking yourself to get through 2 items and stopping. You can do that and either throw out or decide to keep those 2 pieces. Put whatever you decide to keep back in the box and wait for another day to pull 2 more out for the coffee table. It's slow going, but it's no slower than the box being on the coffee table for a few months, right? And easier to manage. Like we always say, everything counts and slow progress is still progress. Thanks again to Lauren for sharing her tittle progress. And up next, we have a question this week that I wanted to give Ed a chance to respond to. Linda on YouTube asked, since Ed is an amazing cook and entertains, does he use good china and silverware while entertaining? Or is this an old-fashioned idea? I'm an old foodie and wonder if that formality is out of date or overrated. I'm no longer the holiday cook.
This is a really interesting question. And I think that I don't think wanting to fancy things up is old-fashioned or out of date, but I think a lot of people have adjusted to, I don't know, just fewer people are investing in the fancy china and such. And we've talked about this a little bit in previous conversations about organizing for entertaining, that it's important to keep in mind that what your guests are really coming for is to enjoy your company and maybe
And your
cooking.
food. Right?
Yeah. And so I think in the Clutter Fairy spirit, you can strike a balance between keeping a huge inventory of china, serving pieces, silverware, etc., and feeding people off of paper plates, And so, although, honestly, if the choice is I can have the 20 people I want to invite if we use paper plates, or I can only invite 8 people if we use the fancy stuff, well, then do the paper plates,
Right.
Our own sort of compromise is we have our I'm going to have visual aids for this today. We have our dinnerware. This is a pattern called, it's Royal Doulton 1815. It's really simple. And it was
two-tone pieces.
It was a 200th, it was a celebration of the 200th anniversary of the Royal Doulton Company. And we found a few pieces of it at outlets. And then we, bought some more through replacements and built up sort of a supply. And we use it as our daily wear stuff, the ordinary pieces, dinner plates and salad plates and a couple sizes of bowls. But then we bought all the other stuff too. We've got little tiny dishes, and we've got big fancy platters, which we use occasionally in our day-to-day life, but not that much. But it's nice that when we have a brunch or have a dinner party or something like that, we can bust out the really nice pieces and they feel special. Like we got this is our latest acquisition, which is a great big serving dish, great for, some
serving bowl
pasta or a fancy salad. And I think it, it's a way to make it special, not just for your guests, but for you, if you have a few things at least that you bring out only once in a while. To me, that's sort of the compromise. We don't have a ton of space, so most of the stuff has to be useful all the time.
Well, and I find one of the things that you've done here is you don't have china for you and then another set for guests.
Right.
You have one set that you both use daily and you also serve guests on.
Right.
And so you make that, you can collapse the collection to one collection instead of multiples. And you did sort of have, when you first got it, you got really excited about it and you did sort of have a, collecting jag.
Yes.
But you did it for a little while and then you kind of reined it in. And so you didn't lose your mind and buy every piece of 1815 you could find. Like you stopped at some point and said, okay, enough. And you do bring out the pieces when you have people, have guests, have the dinner party or whatever, and the stuff comes out and it gets used. And so what happens is anytime you come to Ed's house, this is the stuff that you get served on whether you're over there for Saturday afternoon and you're just, catching lunch for a minute, or
stop by for
whether
a cup of coffee.
You come for the planned dinner party, you're going to get, it's all going to be on the same dishes. And so it works for you guys. And it's a good way to minimize the space that it takes up. And you've like tried to corral it, which I think is important. You didn't completely go off the deep end and buy everything in that pattern that you could find under any circumstance or color or shape or offering.
Yeah.
You had a little moment and then you stopped and it's like, okay, I can't store all this stuff. That's crazy. And so you've managed to rein it in, which I think is a good thing to do.
In a related question, Jane asks, is Ed cooking a great lunch for Gayle today? And the answer is
not
no,
today.
because preparing, well, for starters, we were up till 1 a.m. because Gayle's flight was late. And preparing for the webcast pretty much took all the time and energy available up until this point today. So we're Ed is treating Gayle to some yummy Chinese food from our favorite place.
Later.
We have some responses to the last week's tittle. So
Okay.
Naomi said, my clutter hotspot is my brain. To-do lists just turn into paper clutter in my life. I haven't cracked this problem yet.
So I think you should try, instead of the pieces of paper that you don't like, I think you should investigate a to-do list app that you can use on your phone, because it's still true that trying to carry the to-do list around in your head it just makes everybody crazy, and you have a hard time keeping up with the pieces. But if keeping up with the to-do items in your head is letting go of keeping it up in your head is the goal, then, and paper doesn't work for you, then there are lots of apps out there that create to-do lists on the phone. And that way it's electronic, it's an endless length. It can be, you can do all kinds of tagging and categorizing and things depending on the app. And it'll be a way for you to, when you think of it, you can stop and get into the app and write it on your phone and hopefully let it release it out of your brain. And it can't be any worse than you've been trying to use paper and then the little pieces of to-do list papers end up everywhere and you can't keep up with it there. Try an app and see if it makes it easier for you, because it's endless and it is easily accessible as long as you have your phone on you. You don't have to run and find the most current list because you've always got the most current list on the phone.
Well, if people already struggle with paper as one of their key issues, then paper to-do lists may add this extra layer of tension and stress, because now this is one more piece of paper I have to keep track of and worry about.
Right. And I find that if people prefer paper to-do lists, but they don't manage paper well, then and then you have little pieces of paper everywhere.
Yeah.
Then I always suggest that they take the next step of finding a notebook, a binder, a pad, something that they really like, that they're happy to carry around like they carry their phone around.
Yeah.
And that they put all of those things somewhere in that binder, so that instead of a million loose pieces of paper you just have to flip through the pages of the binder to find what you've written down. And that at least corrals it all in one place, so you can trust that if you ever wrote it down, it's in the binder.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Even if you have to look hard to find it, it's still in there somewhere. It's not floating around in your house as a loose piece of paper. That seems to be a good compromise for people who prefer the act of writing the to-do list down. Like, that helps them deal with it, remember it, think about it, but not have a million pieces of to-do lists in every room, on every surface attached, stuck on the wall, stuck on the computer, all tacked everywhere, and corralling them. I've actually taken all the little sticky notes and everything that's been written on and cut them out and just taped them into a binder to get them started. You don't even have to rewrite this stuff. Let's just tape this in. And we just tape it in and let them go from there, so that we capture everything at once, and then let them move on from there. And I think it helps it's a good compromise. And then if you are comfortable with the tech, switch to tech and it'll be easier.
Judith said, went through the mail clutter hotspot on my kitchen table.
Ooh.
I confess, when I'm dealing with emotional stuff, I just toss the mail on the stack. I don't even open it. 75% at least was recycling. I made progress.
That's huge progress. Getting rid of 75% of it. Awesome. Congrats.
And then
it's a chore. Everybody wants to ignore the chore.
Yeah. Yes. Darby said, I moved the bowls that were too high for my kids to reach down to the first level in the cabinet, switched with the glasses that only my husband and tall people use. The kids have an easier time making breakfast and they get to feel older and more capable.
Oh, isn't that precious? That's wonderful. Yay. That is good kitchen rearranging, girl. I'm proud.
And then Claire said, well, sorta. The middle drawer of my makeup area seems to collect all sorts of personal care stuff, plus weird travel stuff and jewelry bags, assorted hotel toiletries, dental floss, gifts from dentists, office supplies, etc. Did I actually deal with it? No, not yet. It is on my list, though. I did, however, manage to clean off the piano.
Hey, that's 2 spots. So A, you identified one, and B, you treated one. And so good for you. That's progress. Slow progress is better than no. And I think tackling that drawer sounds like it's sort of the designated junk drawer in your bedroom / personal product area. And so you can tackle it a little bit at a time, like go through there and look for trash one day and throw out anything that you think is trash or not useful. And don't worry about organizing the contents. And then you can come back another day and say, okay, now I'm going to look at all the makeup and evaluate it. Would I still wear it? Do I still want it? All that kind of stuff. And then put it, the stuff that you're keeping back in, and come back another day and do other stuff that's in there. And so you can sort of tackle it in phases instead of trying to do it all at one sitting. And that might make it easier to tackle. Keep going. Good luck on that.
And Connie said, I like how when we get homework, we try to do things we might otherwise not do. And that's kind of part of our motivation for assigning the weekly tittle is
right.
It may, if we can get you to, maybe stop focusing on the giant, scary, whatever it is that's troubling you, and put your attention on a small thing you can make progress on, you'll feel better, and the scary thing might not be so scary.
Right. Well, and it's a way to help you break through what you've gotten blind to, right? Like you're just sort of accepting your environment and how it looks. And these homework assignments make you go, oh, look what's over there. Oh, she's right. There's something over there that I'm not paying attention to. And so it just helps you remember that there's things that you're blanking out and not paying attention to.
Joyce shared, we talked a few weeks ago, or it might have been more than a few weeks, about X-rays.
Oh, right.
And she said there is a company that recycles them because there's so much silver in old printed, old style X-rays. And she's included a link, which we will share in the show notes.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
xrayfilmsrecycling.com, but that's a little cumbersome. So I'll put that in the show notes.
How cool.
Okay,
I knew you weren't supposed to throw them away because of the content. So that's awesome.
You definitely don't want them going into the landfill because it's heavy metal and it's worth something. Silver
right?
Silver is there's a limited amount of silver in the world, and they will. I don't know if they'll pay you for them,
but at least they'll
anything,
make sure that
at least
captured.
they're making sure it's not going into the water supply or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, we better move on to our main topic, or we're not going to get to it. So change is inevitable, and changes in our lives and our habits can turn important stuff into clutter overnight. Today, we want to examine how change impacts our relationship to stuff. And then Gayle will offer some ideas about how to leverage the organizing process as a means to accept and adapt to change.
Change is inevitable, and we all know it, but mostly we don't like it. Change makes things obsolete. It makes things painful. It makes things lighter. It makes us shed past lives as we gain new ones. As we live our lives and grow up and evolve into the next version of ourselves, we gather and lose a trail of stuff along the way. Your ability and willingness to update your stuff as your life evolves directly affect the burden of clutter you bring along for the ride. Let's talk about some of those changes and life transitions and how they generate a clutter trail that follows you. One major change is getting out of high school. You just spent your last 4 years focused on high school, grades and sports and school spirit and dating, and you have all the posters and trophies and love letters and class papers to prove it. It's all terribly important through your senior year. And that summer afterwards is a big letdown and change. It's all over, and you've left with the stuff. You can't get rid of it, can you? So it goes in boxes in preparation for the next thing, college or straight to a job or getting married. And you've just created your first cast off clutter after a big change. Your mom is probably in there helping you keep it all, panicking as she watches you grow up and change. Another big change is your first new living situation, whether that's getting married or moving in together or just getting your first apartment as an adult. It is a major change in how you live your life. Lots of that school age stuff stays behind at mom's house, leaving your clutter for her to store, boo, and you start collecting your first adult things. It reflects your income earning level now and your new adult taste and being off leash for the first time. That's a very active collecting phase of your life, buying major things free of your parents' opinions, or at least without your parents' supervision for the first time. Next up is another major living situation change, like buying a house or moving across the country for a new job or getting a divorce. These life changes make a big scramble of what you've gathered about you so far. It's another place where you're leaving an old version of yourself behind and evolving. This kind of major life change requires that you either start to shed some of what you've been accumulating, or you choose to drag some clutter behind you along the way. What about a major career shift, like changing career fields altogether, like I did when I started this business, or losing your job or retiring? This is a change on the level of an earthquake, usually. Pivoting from your current career focus to something totally different or to not working at all is generally a big shock to most people. And most of us have a hard time ditching the clutter that goes with the old path after so many years. Overnight, all this stuff we've been carefully carrying around becomes mostly irrelevant. Watching a whole office's worth of stuff become irrelevant is a weird, unsettling experience. A change like this can lead to depression, a crisis of identity, or other kinds of psychological distress. All of these things I've mentioned so far, take the things that have been in more active use in your life and consign them to becoming clutter in a short period of time and in a quick transitional way. It's up to you to recognize that the change has happened and not keep trying to drag everything forward with you into your new phase of life. Some of the stuff will make sense going forward, and some of it will just get in the way. What about the changes that don't announce themselves so loudly? Things that sneak up on you, or changes that happen so slowly that you don't really notice them as they happen. Part of why we resist getting organized is that there are changes in our lives and changes in ourselves that we've delayed processing, refused to recognize, or resisted dealing with or accepting. Clutter is a manifestation of our resistance to change. When we use our collection of things to help maintain a sense of stability, constancy, normalcy, or security, we can end up anchored to stories about ourselves and our lives that are no longer true. Maybe we use stuff as an anchor because we're afraid of what will happen if we drift away from that old reality or those old stories. Do we use stuff to give us an excuse not to move towards a new truth or a new life? I think we resist getting rid of our clutter because it keeps us anchored to the certainty of the past instead of letting us move forward into the big unknown of the future. If you've been resisting or ignoring changes in your life, you can see a reflection of that in stagnant pools of clutter in your space. Let me give you some examples. Do you have a bunch of clothes in your closet that you can't wear? So your body has changed and your closet doesn't reflect that yet. Is there a pile or a box of inactive craft supplies in the corner of the craft room? Supplies that got piled up and haven't been used in a year or more. Your crafting interests have shifted over time and your craft supplies haven't caught up to the change. Is there furniture that you used to use that you don't seem to choose anymore? Something that used to be comfortable enough before and it isn't comfortable now. Likely your body has changed and it's not enough comfort for an older body. I have a few chairs like that. Do you have some boxes left over from a move that never got unpacked? That's a collection of unneeded things in your new house that could have been donated at the time, but they're still hanging around not being unpacked. Your needs changed in the new space, and these boxes hold extras that are no longer relevant. Are there a bunch of objects that remind you of a first marriage or a partner stuck in boxes or in a corner of the room? Maybe a painful event created a change that you didn't want, or you were scared by the pain of the process. Stuff associated with that change is a painful reminder, but it's clutter reminding you of a past that no longer exists. That stagnant clutter sitting there mocking you. What I'm trying to show you with these examples is the evidence of a change reflected in the stuff. Pick any stagnant pile in your house and ask yourself, what change happened that created this pile? Have I evolved in some way past this stuff? Is it that I don't work there anymore, or that I'm not in school anymore, or that relationship has shifted? Did my taste change, my interests change, my friendships change? What shifted in my life to push this stuff out of the main flow of my life and into the backwaters instead? We're not talking about getting rid of anything you genuinely love. If it makes you happy, there should be a place for it in your life. But you need to take the time and give your attention to questions about whether the stuff you're clinging to really makes you happy, or if it just reminds you of a time when you were happier, reminds you of a positive feeling, reminds you of a previous version of yourself. We want you to evolve your space to reflect what makes you happy in this moment and who you are right now.
We have a great comment from Judith. She said, I am so glad that I had the foresight to give away most of my teaching stuff during the year before I retired. I would empty out a cupboard in my classroom and set it out on a group of desks. During lunchtime, students were invited to come in and choose what they wanted. I felt good that the funky treasures I'd used throughout my teaching were going on to a new home. By the time I actually retired, there was very little that I took home with me.
That is so great. And let me just tell you how many teacher clients I've had who wait till retirement, then they have to empty the classroom so it all gets boxed up and it goes home with them. And then they're now looking for the new teacher that wants all their stuff. And of course, no new teacher wants stuff that's 25 years old. It's not in compliance. It doesn't go with the current system at the school. There's some ideas that are helpful, but they can never get rid of all of the stuff that they want to, because they can never find teachers that are willing to take it all. And it's so hard on them when they bring it all home. And I have done, boxes of manipulatives and boxes of old, 45 copies of this particular write-up or class or instruction. And they're hoping that someone will want to take them all, and they never get redistributed. And I end up carrying them all out. And so good on you for doing it up front. I'm very proud that you thought to do that. That was really smart.
I'll bet too that if we asked Judith's students, there were probably a significant number of them who would say she was their favorite teacher. And so, the chance to take something of hers that meant something to them. Yeah. She did a real service to those kids who wanted a way to remember her.
Right. It was a very brilliant idea to prepare and face the change. I'm retiring. I don't need these things in my retirement. I need to send these on to someone else while I have an audience and a possibility to do so. That was a really, really smart thing to do.
Wolf, who is with us on Facebook, said, sometimes we need change too. I think that's why we sometimes do things like rearrange furniture repeatedly or things like that.
Because making those change, it changes the energy and it moves things around and it helps you see them from a different point of view. It refreshes things and makes it lighter and brighter again. I think that's totally true. And you forget, like, until you start moving it around, you don't touch everything. You forget what's there. So that's a good point.
Jana said, thank you for introducing me to Texas Art Asylum, Gayle. You mentioned them at a meeting I attended several years ago. I take my stuff that is on their acceptable list every few months. It's motivating to know that someone may look at my stuff and see treasure.
It's absolutely true.
We haven't mentioned them in a while, so it's worth mentioning again. Texas Art Asylum is a Houston-based creative reuse center that will take all kinds of things. Are they Texas Art? What's their URL?
Yeah, texasartasylum.com.
Okay. And they publish a list of things that they will accept, and it's a really long list.
And things that they don't want. They tell you things they don't want.
They tell you, yes, explicitly some things they don't want. And they have a period every month during which they will accept stuff. They only accept for a few days every month.
Well, they did shift to adapt to COVID. So one of the things they did was they shifted to, you have to make an appointment to drop stuff off. So
Oh,
you
okay.
have to go on to their website and get scheduled for an appointment drop off time. So it's not,
yeah.
it's a little bit harder. It takes a little bit longer. You have to wait a little bit longer to get an appointment and be able to go at the appropriate time. But they did, in order to stay alive, they had to shrink some of their space and go to appointment drop off only, and also go to appointment by appointment teacher sale. So they couldn't have a sale like they normally did, where there was a parade, a line of teachers coming through to get stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure, you know, for the teachers who were, everybody was working from home and all, like, it was not, that teacher sale didn't adapt quickly to COVID environments. So they're doing their best and they're staying afloat, and they've made things, changes to cope, but they are still taking things, and you just have to do it according to their schedule.
This is a big question.
Okay.
Tammy asked, how do I decide who I am or how my space reflects who I become?
That is a big question. I think it really is a matter of, you look at anything in particular and decide, looking at it and say, is this really part of what's interesting and important to me right now? Does this affect my ability to function? Do I need this to live my life and have the basic necessities? You know, I need dishes to eat. I need, you know, shampoo to wash my hair. There's things that are all necessities to function as a human. Can I eat? Can I sleep? Can I bathe? Right. And then all the things that support that are necessary. And then anything that doesn't fall under that necessary category, then it's, does this make me feel good? Is this something that is still important to me? There's a whole bunch of sentimental stuff, but maybe it's not all good memories. Often I find people have stacks of things in the corner or in a closet or in a box, and they're like, oh yeah, that's from that, you know, I dated this guy, and it's like, and they make a face and they grumble. I hated that guy, or it ended badly or whatever. And I'm like, then why is this stuff still in your house? Like, let's get that juju out. Like, you don't need to hold on to that stuff. So I think that there are things that get pushed aside because in the moment they're too painful to deal with, but you can circle back and go, does this remind me? I have a client right now who got divorced 15 years ago. And there's all sorts of stuff about her divorce, about the investigation into his assets, about the custody battle, about the kids. And that battle is long since done. The divorce is over. They are not, you know, they interact and see each other occasionally around the kids. Like, this is old news for her. But for some reason, she still is clinging on to all the evidence of the trauma. And I'm thinking, often, why do you want to hold on to something that reminds you about how bad that felt back then? That's not where you are now. It's not how she feels in the moment, but somehow it's important for her to hold on the evidence of the injury. And I think it's sad. It's sad to me that it's more important for her to be reminded of the pain than it is for her to release it and move on. And I've asked several times, as we run across new pieces, can I let go of this? No, I need to keep that. Are you sure? Are you really sure that this is important? And I managed to, like when she was investigating divorce lawyers, or she was investigating how to cope, they were looking at therapy. And so that she had downloaded all this stuff on the internet about processing cheating and that kind of stuff, and what that did to a couple. And she was able to throw away the sort of generic help information that she sought out as she tried to navigate keeping or leaving this relationship. And so some of that went, I'm able to get her to let go of some of that, but she's saving some of the more targeted things. And I feel bad for her that she's choosing to hold the things that make her feel bad. And I don't understand why she's choosing it, but she's not ready to let them go. And so we keep them, and I just keep trying to corral them into into one place, so that maybe someday when she's ready, she can release all of these things that she's still attached to.
In response to Tammy's question, Kara, I think she pronounces it Kara. I hope I have that right. Said, that's a big question. if you write, maybe do some writing about this. That's
Good advice. Always
often
good
my
advice.
suggestion as well. I think writing through things you're trying to understand about yourself and the workings of your brain is very useful. And Kara also said, also collect pictures or images or thoughts that attract you. And we've suggested too, using vision boards. Thank you.
Yeah. A vision board.
And Claire added, one way is to choose your favorite things to do and have around you and put the other things away for a while. I do not know if you ever have to actually decide as things are continually changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, if at the very least you can say, do I need this to function right now? And there's that creates a subset of things that are staying no matter what. Like I need to use this to take care of myself and have my life. And then you can be in contemplation about the rest. And you may not be able to make decisions about everything, but anything that you can make a decision about, that it's okay, I can release that one. That's not, no matter what, this isn't going to be part of my future life. You can go through the process and release that one thing, even if you don't know the answers to all. And I think our lives are complicated and we are constantly learning about ourselves. And so it's not really a final target that you ever actually arrive. I think that's the point, that the stuff around you is going to constantly shift and change as you shift and change. And so evaluating whether it really is supportive for you now, even if it was supportive for you 20 years ago, it may not be now. And so trying to look at things with that in mind, does it still help me? Do I still need it? Do I still love it? It'll help you at least reduce some of the contents. Is there a perfect answer to this question? No. And if there were, we would not need psychologists, right? We would be done.
This seems like a good place for our standard disclaimer that Gayle and Ed are not healthcare professionals.
We are not psychologists.
So we are not qualified to give you heavy duty psychological advice beyond as friends and people who care about your health and well-being.
Exactly.
But something you said a moment ago also made me think about, maybe you don't have to decide who you are. I think you get some clarity by removing the things that are not who you are.
Because you can probably answer some of those questions.
Yeah, that may be easier. That may be a little easier. Is, well, here's the thing I used to use all the time, but I stopped this hobby, diversion. This thing made sense in terms of this relationship,
or this house, or this room.
Yeah.
And not anymore.
Yeah. One thing that crossed my mind as you and I were talking about life changes, my vision has gotten progressively worse through, some trauma and age. And so it's totally unrealistic for me to hang on to books with teeny tiny type. No matter how much I love them, no matter how much I want to read them again, I'm not going to be able to do it in that form.
Those books have to go because you can't, your eyes have changed enough that you can't, the fact that you love them in that book form doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
You can't actually read them anyway. So it's part of how the electronic stuff supports you, because you can make the type as large as you need to be able to see it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the goal.
One of our Facebook participants pointed out to me that I goofed when I should not have spotlighted you before we talked about the dishes. So people in Zoom were able to see the dishes I held up.
But so not them. Oh, so sorry, Facebook. We didn't mean to slight you.
We will just momentarily
here we go.
unspotlight you so I can show you what we were talking about. This is the sort of everyday 1815 dinnerware that we use.
Right.
And then this is the fancy thing that we most recently got. So people on Facebook,
the larger bowl,
and people on YouTube will now be able to see this. They would not have been able to see it because I had you spotlighted. And then while we're not spotlighting Gayle, we'll also get today's special guest to come over here. There's today's special guest, Hardy, who wanted to be in the webcast too. Okay. And now we'll go back to spotlighting Gayle.
Look at him being camera shy. Hardy did not stay on camera for more than a minute.
No, he had to get away. Emily Sue said, Tammy, great question. For me, it's happening naturally. I gravitate to things I like and let go of what doesn't serve me. I'm getting to know myself lately.
Isn't that awesome? It is a self-exploration that's reflected in your stuff. And sometimes when you can't do it, when you're just thinking about yourself and you can't really get clear, sometimes the things around you will help you get clear. Good for you.
We are fast running out of time, so I want to make just one or two routine announcements. I want to remind those who are with us live that we also have a YouTube channel.
Yes, we do.
Every week after we finish this thing, we edit it a little bit or a lot and put it on YouTube and also publish it as a podcast. And our YouTube channel has more than 170 videos now on lots and lots of organizing subtopics. You can visit cfhou.com/YouTube. While you're there on YouTube, subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon next to the subscribe button if you'd like to get notifications whenever we post new content. Let's talk about the weekly tittle.
Our weekly tittle is to look around the house for something that's sitting there that represents a previous version of yourself and ask these questions. Is this still part of who I am? Is this still useful to me right now? Or does this make me happy? Does it still deserve the space that it's taking up in my home? How would I feel about releasing it to someone else who can enjoy it? Use this idea, this tittle, as a way to go find a place that you think of as a stagnant corner and pull the stuff out and ask, do these have anything to do with who I am? Is this still useful to me or make me happy? Does it deserve the space that it's filling right now over there in the corner? And how would I feel about giving it up? And see if some of those things can be released, because they reflect the fact that you've changed in some way and they've been left behind. They've been pushed to the side. They've been shoved into the backwater because they don't support what's going on for you currently. And see how it goes. See if that focus, if that narrowing of focus allows you to process and deal with something that's stuck in the corner you've been ignoring. And hopefully it will help.
Jane pointed out that not having signs to show today is a change that we're asking our viewers to adapt to. Briefly.
Exactly.
The signs will be back next week when Gayle returns to Clutter Fairy headquarters in Houston.
Yes, I did not think they would survive in my luggage through you 8 flights.
I think you were probably right about that. And then our signs would have ended up in Alaska or something.
Right. Or they would have been crushed and destroyed and have to be rebuilt. So thank you for winging it with us, guys. We appreciate it.
We'll be back next week at our usual time, Tuesday, August 24th at noon US Central Time, live in Zoom and streaming on Facebook. We're going to talk next week about kids' rooms, kids' bedrooms and playrooms. And because we recognize that not everybody in our audience has kids or has had kids, we will also touch on man caves and she sheds. And we think among those, that should cover just about everyone.
So, and everybody will have some stick in the game for that one.
If you're watching this on YouTube, we'd love for you to join us live. To get notifications about upcoming events, we invite you to join the meetup group by visiting cfhou.com/meetup. You can also follow us on Facebook by going to cfhou.com/Facebook, or subscribe to our mailing list by visiting cfhou.com/subscribe. We love to hear from you, so please keep those questions, comments, and topic suggestions coming on YouTube, Facebook, or anywhere else that you find us. And you can always reach us through our website at clutterfairyhouston.com.
Can't wait to see you next week. We'll be back home after that. And I hope you enjoyed our happy visit to Tennessee. And we'll see you in Houston next week. Bye.
Bye-bye.